Joining us now, my old friend, Michael Steele, MSNBC analyst and former RNC chairman. Michael Steele, how are you?
It's so good to be on your show again.
Great to talk to you. So Karl Rove says, no, we shouldn't talk about Reverend Wright. Well, I think Reverend Wright's kind of a proxy for all sorts of ways to discuss this president, but we shouldn't talk about that. And Matthew Dowd on ABC said, oh, no, if we're talking about Reverend Wright in the fall, then we're going to lose this election. What's your take on how this super PAC story plays out?
Well, I think you hit a good point there. It's a two-edged sword. There's no doubt about it. There are a lot of chickens that have come home to roost for this administration, especially on the economy. And that's something that they don't want to talk about. You haven't heard Obama talk about his health care bill. You haven't really heard him talk about the underbelly of this economy, which is the 23 million people who have yet to get a job. And so the reality is very stark there. The danger is using Reverend Wright, having the left use Reverend Wright as a whipping post against the GOP to distract away from that conversation in the economy, which is what you hear Karl Rove and Matthew and others saying. But you make an interesting point about the super PACs. One of the advantages they have is that they can go where the campaign can't go. The danger is that, and you got to be smart about this, not let the left then whipsaw back whatever that super PAC does and say, well, this is Mitt Romney, and then put a microphone in his face and say, well, what do you think about that? I think that, complete disavowal is the first and obvious thing that they're going to say. And the reality of it is those super PACs are empowered to do whatever it is they want to do with the money they have. The Reverend Wright issue is an interesting one with respect to if there was a payoff, if there was money in exchange for silence. That's a legitimate story. The question is digging into that in such a way that you're not stuck in the muck and mire of a Reverend Wright distraction as opposed to a legitimate story about what the Obama campaign did to keep them quiet.
I think that is not only legitimate, I think it's a reasonable point of view on this. I mean, why have a free press? If the press isn't going to at least ask questions of this, I don't believe a single question has been asked about this in the briefing room, has it?
The press hasn't been free in a long time. The mainstream press has been beholden to the left for a long time. So it's going to take, a lot of the digging and fortitude of folks like you and Sean and others to raise these things. But just know when you do, the reaction from the left is going to be, there they go again. And that's where we as Republicans, particularly conservatives, kind of back down and meekly go into the corner. You've got to stay bold in that moment. If you look when this story first broke, who broke it was Sean Hannity. Sean stayed diligent on that story.
Yes, he was great.
And he was right. And so, again, if you're raising the question about, wait a minute, hold up, there was money exchanged here. This is a legitimate concern that we should have about the character of this campaign, back in 2008, and it's relevant today, then you're going to have to stick with it. Just know that when you do, the noise is going to come.
We're talking to Michael. Yeah, well, it doesn't bother me. I mean, everyone's all this guy Joe Ricketts from TD Ameritrade runs this group Ending Spending. It's a group primarily focused on the economy, but I think what they tried to do with him was use him as an opportunity to try to intimidate others in the marketplace of super PACs from going into a quote aggressive stance against Obama. But someone was disturbed with the tone of this.
I'd agree with that. The problem I had with the Joe Ricketts piece was, first off, it wasn't something that was done. It was contemplated. It was a storyboard. It was something that was presented. Now, I personally think it's kind of a crazy strategy to try to go down that particular road, but that's a strategy that they were presenting. Joe Ricketts had really even focused on it or to a point where a decision was made, and yet someone had leaked it out to your point, to sort of get in front of the potentiality of that ad being done, and really kind of cutting it off before it even saw the light of day.
Yeah.
And then again, reframing the argument, there goes those super PACs, those dirty, nasty super PACs, digging up mud and looking to throw it on Obama.
Yeah, and now we find out that Republicans may indeed be able to outspend and outraise the Democrats when it comes to these third-party groups. The Washington Post describes it as panic, desperation and panic almost setting in among the Democrats. That's another reason why they had to go the gay marriage route, I think. They needed to get this money coming in.
Well, there's no doubt about that, and that was the most obvious play of the month. If you're really looking at the sources of income, when you had the president about to go hang out with George Clooney on a Friday, and then has 2 or 3 back-to-back fundraisers with supporters of and members of the gay and lesbian community on that following Monday and Tuesday. The last thing he wanted to do was to walk in there with this, this sort of Damocles hanging over his head about where his position is on gay marriage. So the easiest way to sort of take that money in good faith is to come out and do what you need to do. And, of course, the money flows from that. And I think that is one of the concerns the Dems have is that looking at the road ahead, the super PAC dollars, because, number one, Obama waited so long to unleash the super PACs on the left, has given the Republicans a heads up. They're better organized, and the reality is, and you speak to this a lot, Laura, is that the momentum, the force of really wanting to bring change, moving this administration out and a Republican administration in, is palpable right now, and that's reflected in the dollars that's going to the super PACs.
Michael, the RNC today, run by Wright's Prance. I always say it wrong. How do I say it? Prince. Is it Priebus? Yeah. I don't know what. Sorry, we have a nickname. But I actually like him. I think what you see, and maybe you could speak to this, is he has to both be the head of the party as head of RNC, but also he has to work with the Romney camp, right? So he can't get out too far on an issue either, right? In his own fundraising, right, if it conflicts with what the Romney campaign wants to do on an issue, for instance, like gay marriage, where you see right, in the NAACP comes out and votes to support same-sex marriage. I would think to kind of raise the issue one more time to try to shore up the base for African Americans. But does any of this in your mind, when you look at this, is this an opening for Republicans, given the NCAA support for this now?
Yeah, I think
NAACP?
There is, and I think people try to play off the fact that there is a real divide within the black community on this issue. They're torn between two loyalties. One is their pastor, and the other is their president. And I think that that's going to get played out a little bit more over the summer. The NAACP coming out in support of gay marriage, is this, in the mantra of civil rights, really, irks rank and file African Americans who do not see this in a civil rights context, and so there are a lot of dramas that are going to be played out here. I think it's an opening for the GOP, probably not as wide as it was in 2004 for George Bush, because you do have Barack Obama as president this time, but it's still an opening there to have that conversation. Those values still matter. They still mean something. The redefinition of marriage is a serious concern to a host of Americans, particularly minorities like Hispanics and African Americans, and I think that's something the party can speak to. You're absolutely right. The RNC is now in beholden to, if you will, the campaign of Mitt Romney. They're sending the dictates in terms of what they want done, and the chairman has to make sure that his messaging coming out of the building is consistent with that, which is probably one of the reasons why they didn't want me as chairman at this time, because I speak to the heart and I try tell truth to power, and so it's tough sometimes to be in that position and try to recognize what your grassroots activists, and particularly your Tea Party activists and those conservatives who really were the cornerstone of success in 2010, who are looking for that same consistency in message, that same consistency in values, and they want to see it articulated by the national party. And when it's not articulated, you hear those rumblings. Is the
NAACP still relevant as a civil rights organization, given how political it is?
It probably not on the same level nationally as it was maybe in the 1960s. And even in the 70s. But within the black community, absolutely it is. It's very much a relevant institution. It's historic. And this is, again, I think something that I've always stressed for the party is recognize that we as Republicans founded this institution. So we have a historic link to it. So there are a number of opportunities, I still believe, for us to be a part of the shaping of its message in historic terms. But yeah, it's kind of gotten off the rails. It's become much more, interested.
It's just political, Michael.
Right, political, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Planned Parenthood was founded by Margaret Sanger, who sought to control the population of the undesirables, and black and brown Americans were in her crosshairs as a woman who was crusading to control that undesirable population. And somehow we got into a situation where, and I think a lot of this is the fault of Republicans, where African Americans are voting in lockstep with a party that supports and funnels hundreds of millions of dollars to Planned Parenthood. Look at the carnage in New York City alone with black children being aborted in the largest numbers. It's stunning to me.
You are absolutely right about that, and it is one of those twists of history that I've yet to understand, how when you look at something like the NAACP siding up with an organization like Planned Parenthood that has as part of its history and its charter and its existence, the use of abortion to eliminate and limit the number of African American and other minorities in this country, to me, it's just beyond the pale. And I think, again, creates an opening for our voice to be a part of the conversation within the community to, A, set the record straight on the history, but B, speak to those values that I know you hear every Sunday in church and that those folks try to live out every day of their lives. And things like life have meaning and value to them. Things like marriage have meaning and value to them. And I think we can still speak to them in a way that is very attractive and very appealing, and takes the politics out of it the way, the left likes to play it. So because when you get to the politics, then it becomes Dems and Republicans and left and right. But I think when you stick on the value messages, a number of folks have said to me over the years, that resonates a lot greater.
I think when the Democrats are trying to make inroads in the military families and veterans constituency, the Republicans would do themselves a big favor by trying to make inroads in California, New York, and in minority communities that are still incredibly hostile to the Republican message. Go there and make the case for individual freedom and economic empowerment, and I think you win points. It's going to take a long time to make up this divide and bridge this divide.
Right.
But if you don't start, and if Romney doesn't start and his surrogates don't start now, then I don't see how Republicans end up winning national elections 15, 20 years from now.
You're speaking to a member of your choir on that one. My first official act as chairman, which was the Monday after I was elected, I went to Harlem and I hosted a town hall in Harlem on healthcare. And I remember a number of members of the committee calling up irate, "Why are you in Harlem?" And I said, because that's where the vote is. That's where our future is. Our future lies in places like Harlem and in Watts and elsewhere around this country where we're presently not active politically with that message you just talked about. Yes, it's going to take some time, and yes, there's going to be some frustrations, but the effort that we put in place over those 2 years got us Congressman Scott, got us Congressman West, got us a Nikki Haley, got us individuals who now reflect a broader vision of what this party is all about historically and what this country is. And I think you're dead on there. It's just amazing to me that we don't spend as much time making those steps and taking those steps as we do wasting time getting into the traps the Democrats set for us.
Oh, God bless. Well, I appreciate that message. Michael Steele, thanks so much for joining us. I hope you come back soon. We had so many more questions.
I will.
There's so much.
Laura, I'm with
all right.
you, girl. I love your show. Take care of yourself.
Thank you. And say hi to all my friends at MSNBC.
I will.
Morning Joe panel. They love me. Now, we watch you on that. It's good to see you out, in hostile territory, trying to get the message out. So we appreciate it. Michael, thanks so much. All right, we'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show.